Immigration levels in the United States continue to reach new highs. A new report by the Center for Immigration Studies estimates that the current immigrant population in America, legal and illegal, now numbers about 44.5 million. That adds up to almost 14% of the entire country. That's the highest percentage since 1910. In other words, the highest percentage that any living American has ever seen. 1 in 7 U.S. residents was born in a foreign country. Well, polls show consistently that Americans are not for this. Most, when asked, want less immigration than we currently have. A century ago, the last time immigration levels were this high, the public felt the same way. The public always feels that way in every country that has mass immigration at these levels. Since we had a strong democracy at the time, the public got its wish. Immigration levels were slashed dramatically, and they stayed low for about half a century. But America, unfortunately, isn't nearly the democracy it once was, so we can't count on the same thing happening this time. In fact, something very different is happening. Economic and cultural elites demand more and more immigration, regardless of what the public says it wants. Just this week in Oregon, for one example, the CEO of Nike, Mark Parker, announced that his company is opposing a proposal to eliminate Oregon's sanctuary city law. If illegal immigrants don't have a right to settle in Oregon, in total defiance of existing U.S. law, Parker says, the state will not be able to attract, quote, diverse talent. Parker knows what's going on. He's a businessman. As long as you fight to drive down wages in the United States and sponsor athletes who protest the flag, the left will give you a pass for running sweatshops overseas, which it does. The public wants its immigration laws enforced. It said so clearly. They elected Donald Trump to do exactly that. But the stranglehold of our elites, a small percentage of our population, is so strong that the opposite has happened since Trump's election. America is closer to having open borders now than ever. Consider this. From October 2016 through September of 2017, more than 94,000 people were caught crossing the U.S.-Mexico border and claimed to be part of a family unit coming from Guatemala, El Salvador, or Honduras. Now, you'd think that illegally entering the United States would be an automatic ticket home, and quickly, but you'd be wrong. These people were not sent home. They were allowed to settle in the United States while their cases were resolved, which in practical terms means forever. Of those 94,000 illegal border crossers, only 1,500 have been sent back. In other words, 98% are still here. During the same period, 31,000 unaccompanied minors were detained at the border, and again, 98% of them are still here, which means that America effectively, no matter what they're telling you, has no borders. This is not a secret. Word has got out to the rest of the world, and hundreds of thousands of people are taking advantage of this. This is a crisis. It's one created by years of deliberate neglect by those in power. Instead of acknowledging it, though, the left denies there is a crisis and then works to exacerbate the crisis. Virtually everyone on the left now opposes a wall on the grounds that it would be too effective. Many oppose any sort of border enforcement, too. The New York City Council just endorsed abolishing ICE on the grounds that too many people get deported, when in fact, as you just heard, almost nobody gets deported. It's a lie. It makes you think maybe there's another agenda here, one that has nothing to do with what voters want. Enrique Acevedo is an anchor at Univision and a frequent guest on the show. He joins us. Enrique, thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So when I was born in this country, the percentage of people living here who are foreign-born was under 5%. It's now about 14%, so that's a threefold increase. That's a huge change in less than 50 years. Is the country better or worse for that, would you say?
I think the country is better and the economy is better, but still those levels, 14%, is actually lower than what we had 60, 70 years ago, even before that, where it was closer to 20%.
So I'm sorry, you're allowed to your opinions, not to your facts. That's untrue, and as I just said in the open, that is first of all, the largest total number in American history.
14% the largest number?
No. The aggregate number, the actual number, the millions of foreign-born in this country is the biggest number ever. But the percentage of population is the highest since 1910. So that's what 108 years. So, okay, so you think the country's better for more than tripling the percentage of foreign-born in its borders. What would be the limit? How could we get to the best possible country? What's the ideal? What percentage of Americans do you think should be foreign-born?
So this is the thing. 2/3 of the GDP expansion since 2011 came from immigrants. And this is not me saying it. It's Citigroup, not exactly a bastion of open borders or socialism. Immigration is helping the largest economy in the world, our economy.
Citigroup is an advocate for open borders, just for the record, just so you know. But okay, so economic growth comes directly from low-wage immigration. That's your contention. That's
not
what
only low-wage immigration. I think what we're seeing in terms of innovation, in terms of economic growth in the country, not only in sectors like agriculture or construction or the service sector. We're seeing this too in places like Silicon Valley, in places where innovation and technology are driving the economy, and immigrants are becoming a key factor, an engine of growth in those places. So I agree with you, though, that there is a crisis.
Wait, but hold on. So part of what you said is true. That's absolutely right. A lot of immigrants have been very successful and innovative and impressive, I think, and great people, by the way.
Good.
And a lot of them are in Silicon Valley. But the overwhelming majority of the people we let in have very limited skills and very low education level and no money. They're the poor of the world. That's the overwhelming majority of the people we let in. Why not decide that we want to let in every software engineer around the world or every physician or every physicist? Why, in a post-industrial country, are we letting in majority people with low skills?
Well, because we've said in the past, like we've discussed in the past, help is wanted in this country. These jobs are being offered to these people, so that's why they're coming to the U.S. You can build a wall, a beautiful big wall throughout that 2,000-mile border, and then 100 feet after that wall, you'll have a big sign that says "Help Wanted." So people are going to still come and try to do those jobs.
Right. No, I know you're making the case for big business again, that they shouldn't have to pay American-level wages.
Not only big business, you see small and medium companies hiring these people and benefiting from their work, sometimes exploiting their work.
Right. No, you're flacking for corporate America. I get it. But let me just get right back to my original question, which was, if 14% foreign-born is good, what's the limit? If we were 90% foreign-born, there were a much smaller percentage of Americans living here, would it be even better?
So you said in the past that you're against undocumented immigration, but also for limiting legal immigration. And I think that's a real issue here. I don't think we should be addressing undocumented immigration from a border enforcement standpoint, only from a border enforcement standpoint. No, of course not. And you just said that we have a crisis right now, and the current policies, even the Trump administration policies, are not working. That's why we should be working on the push factors, on the root causes of immigration. But on the other hand, you said you want to limit legal immigration. So that's the thing. You don't want people to come here and request asylum legally. You don't want them to come here and try to look for a job. And then you don't want them to get visas or anything else.
You're telling me, hold on. Well, so you're telling me what I want. Let me tell you what I want, because I'm here. I want a democracy where the majority of voters get to decide what their country does. The big policies come from what people who live here want, and every poll of immigration shows Americans think the numbers are too high. But a small number of activists like you, who apparently have all the power, are saying, we don't care what you want, this is what you're getting. That's not democracy, is it? That's a kind of government familiar in Latin America, where an oligarchy is in control. Well, what am I missing here?
Well, first of all, I don't know exactly what polls you're referring to, because all the polls that I've seen actually have the majority of Americans in favor of comprehensive immigration reform, against the wall, against massive deportation, against family separation. So, and most Americans understand the value of immigration too.
Okay, but shouldn't they be in charge? Look, very simple. I'll end with this. If the majority of Americans think that our immigration levels are too high, and the polls show they do think that, then shouldn't we reduce those levels? Why don't we follow the lead of the public?
To what percentage would you say would be acceptable for you and for?
I don't know. How about when I was born? It was fine. It was a better country than it is now in a lot of ways.
You think
it's not
so?
Just about immigration.
In what sense was it a better country? What metric?
It was a more cohesive country.
It was a less diverse
and the
country,
middle class,
maybe?
No, it's not about race, actually. The middle class was vibrant when I was born. It's dying now, and that's the difference. It's not about race. Don't make it that way. Anyway, we're out of time. Great to see you.
Great to see you too, Tucker. Bye.
Peter Kirsanow is a lawyer and serves on the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and he joins us tonight. Peter, thanks for coming on. If the argument is, and I think the argument that the left is making is, the more foreigners you have living here, the better the country is. What does that say about their view of Americans?
Well, one of the principal reasons people come to this country is because of our fidelity to the rule of law. But when we abrogate and derogate the rule of law in the manner in which we've been doing with respect to illegal immigration, what we're doing is turning our country into the type of country from which they fled. Your previous guest talked about the purported benefits to this uncontrollable level of immigration that we currently have. Certain elites may be insulated from some of the deleterious effects, but those effects are profound. We've talked in the past about the increase in crime rates, and they are increasing. At a time when the crime rates were falling, the crime rates among illegal immigrants went up 44%. In addition to that, we've got the public fisc. We've got the burden on the Treasury because of this. Infrastructure, educational institutions, hospitals, and so on and so forth are burdened by it. But the most important aspect of it is the preservation of our sovereignty. If we don't have borders, if we don't have the ability to control who comes here, we're no longer a nation. And again, the rule of law is important, and we seem to take a cavalier approach to the protection of the constitutional order that we've got constructed, which makes us unique in terms of history, in terms of our current stature within the world. And if we just let that go, simply don't care about our borders, don't care about the level of immigration, so that it satisfies the needs and wants of elites and also of certain political imperatives, so progressives can have more people who eventually vote for them, we're going to suffer as a result.
I don't even know how they would respond to that. Every time you come on, I always think, I wish we had an open borders person to respond to you, because I don't know what the answer would be. It's such a tight argument. Thank you. Peter Christow, it's always great to see you.
Thanks, Tucker.